Hey YouTube, my name's John. I'm here to show you how to take the carpets out of your Jeep and replace it with bed liner and rubber mats. So the reason you want to do this in the first place is after you've had your Jeep for a while, you go out and mud with it, you go down the beach with it, you get sand and dirt inside of it. That stuff starts getting into the carpet, carpets start getting a little ratty. Also, what's going to happen is if you keep the top down, rain's going to get in, those carpets are going to start getting moldy and smelly, and you're just going to eventually want to get rid of them. So when you do get rid of them, don't just put new carpets back in. The better way to do it is put bed liner in replace of the carpets and then put rubber mats down. And that way, when you're done, you can just hose out your Jeep, comes out the drain plugs that are built into the bottom, and you don't have to ever wash your carpet or rinse your carpet ever again. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's start talking about the tools you're gonna need to do the job. You're gonna need a mallet and a chisel if you wanna take the sound insulation out of the Jeep. You don't have to do it, but if you want to, you're gonna need that. Probably a good pair of cutters, pliers, clippers, screwdrivers, typical drill bits that you're going to need to do random things. You're going to need some kind of socket set as you go along. You're also going to need 18mm sockets to get some of the seats out, and you're going to need a star wrench kit that gets you up to about T45, so you can get some of the T-sockets out as well. To get the seats out, you're going to need something longer than a short socket bar. You're going to need something longer, or maybe even a breaker bar that you can put over here to get leverage on some of those bolts to get them out. There are a lot of different options for you out in the market right now on what kind of paint you're going to use. There's roll-on bed liners, there's spray-on bed liners. My recommendation for you at this point is go with a spray-on. The Jeep has a surface that really makes the roll-on a lot more difficult than your standard truck bed. In addition to this, I picked up some Pour 15 to hit some places where I didn't want bed liner paint, but I wanted to cover up with black. And I also picked up a degreaser that allowed me to degrease the area and prep for paint. Before you start, you're going to want to decide how thorough a job you're going to want to do on this Jeep. You probably, on a Saturday, if you have a friend helping you out, do the whole job on a Saturday. But if you want to take your time and you want to do a lot of detail work as you go, it's going to take you a long time to do the job. I was surprised. It actually took me 3 or 4 weekends, a weekend to get it ready, weekend to do prep, and then a weekend to paint. But again, you probably could slap it together if you wanted to in a much shorter amount of time. It's because there's a lot of little parts and pieces. Do you want to get under the trim and or do you want to, by taking the trim out, or do you want to just go up to the trim and call it a day? There's some electrical cabling in the back. Do you want to pull electrical cabling out and then put it back in? If you do, it's going to take longer than if you just paint it up with the electrical cable in there. To get started, you're going to want to take off at least the side panels, maybe even the whole top. You're at least going to want to take off some of the doors. I took off my front doors and left the side doors on, but it'd probably be easier to take all 4 doors off so you can have great access to the vehicle. The first thing that you're going to do once you get all the tops and doors off is you're going to pull the carpets out. They're going to come right out. You can use your knife maybe to cut them out a little bit, a couple of places, but really the carpets should come right out. If you don't use a knife, you can probably store them away and keep them if you want to sell the Jeep later. I recommend that you keep track of all your parts and pieces. I've got all my old bolts here that kept the seats down. I've got my plugs, the water plugs. I've also bought my new Christmas tree plugs here to put the trim back on. And I also have new Christmas tree straps here, tie-down straps, that I can use to strap those cables in the electrical cables in the back. There are Christmas tree plugs that plug into those holes and hold this electrical cable up. That electrical cable runs from the back down the side up to the front on each side. On the sides, I pulled up the trim pieces so we can get the paint all the way up under the trim. In the back, I've pulled off the covers off the tailgate. I've started to grind down this pad that covers up the well in the back. Now when you pull up those carpets, you're going to see this asphalt-like substance stuck to the floor on the footwells for front and back and in the rear. Now this stuff is soundproofing and maybe heat-proofing, and some people think that it actually protects you from elements from the engine. It's going to be your choice whether or not you want to leave that stuff out or go right over top of it with the paint. So I took the clips off of the carpets. I cut the bottom of the clip off so the bottom is flat. And then I took an angle grinder and ground down the paint so it was just paint on plastic. And I'm using the JB Weld 2-part epoxy to epoxy that element right onto the floor of the Jeep. And hopefully that will then hook in to the holes in the back of the new carpets that I got, the new mats that I got. At this point, you're ready to prep the surface to be able to put the paint down. Now you're going to use these Scotch-Brite pads to take off the top coat of the paint, because the bed liner, if it's stuck to the stock paint, will come off. So you need to use this and scrub down the paint until you see a fine layer of dust start to form, and you're going to see the finish on it go from being a gloss finish to being a matte finish, and that tells you that you've gotten that top coat off and you know you're ready to finally paint. The seats are out, the carpet is out. I've just scrubbed the entire inside out. I've pulled all the electrical cables out so I can paint behind them. This thing is ready to be prepped. Got to start working on the surface. Once you're done prepping the surface, you're going to go ahead and wash it out. You're going to follow the instructions using degreaser where necessary, and then rinsing again to the point where you have a perfect, clean, non-oily surface to paint on. There's lots of YouTube videos about taking out the center console. I chose to leave mine in and just paint up underneath it with a smaller brush. In addition to the paint supplies you're going to need to do the job, the rollers and the brushes, you're also going to need a box of rubber gloves and a lot of extra spare towels. Also, set up a paint area because this is going to get messy. If you do roll it on, make sure to buy lots of extra rollers and brushes. The rollers break down with the paint really quickly, and you really need to be able to swap them out so you don't leave little bits of the brush everywhere you go. I bought 1 gallon of Monster liner thinking that that would be enough, but it was not. That barely got me through 2 coats of paint, and there were still areas where I could see little flecks of white because I was going over white interior with black paint. I would get 1.5 gallons if you're going to do a roll-on. I'm not sure about sprays, but for the roll-on, you're going to want to go through and do at least a 3rd coat on some of the high traffic areas like the footwells and the fender wells. With the Monster liner, you go ahead and you pull off your tape as soon as you're done to give nice sharp edges to the paint lines, and this is going to finish up the painting. Make sure to use a respirator when doing this work. These catalyst-based paints are really tough. They'll make you lightheaded and dizzy. Also, keep the air well ventilated or just do the whole job outside. I covered up the holes that bolt on the seats with little round stickers to make sure that I didn't get paint on any of the threads. Tailgate's looking good. Back's looking good. Sidewells and everything are looking nice. Got my seat belts back in. I'm starting to put things like the door handles back in. I had taken out all the trim, but the trim is now back in. The cabling is now back into place. I poured 15 to the feet of the chairs so that they aren't rusting anymore. Fast tip on how to get the rear seats out. What you go ahead and do is you pull out this front piece first and you unbolt it here. And once you unbolt the 2 front pieces and those 2 front pieces on the opposite side, what's going to happen is the seat is going to be able to lift up, which exposes the bolts underneath that allows you to get the back off completely. One of the nice details I took a little extra time to complete was rerouting the electrical cable. By default, the electrical cable that you can barely see right here because it's tucked away so nicely comes down on the outside of the door jamb hardware here. Now, if you take that door jamb hardware off, you can reroute the electrical cable, which used to just be hidden behind the carpet, back behind here so it doesn't get in the way of a visitor who's sitting in the back seat, where they would see that cable draped along the fender well right here. So here it is, the final product. We've got the inside all done. I've got my mats in now. So I've repainted the feet on it. And in the back, I've got my new mats in as well, going across the back. They even cover over top of some of the electrical cabling nicely. Again, all the fender wells are done. In the back, we've got our new piece here with our new mat, and we've got our fender wells done here, coming up to the roll bars here, and up and underneath and behind the seatbelt piece here. We've got the tailgate done. Looking really awesome. So there you go. That's how you do a Jeep. So I just got back from the beach, first time. Took me 30 seconds to get the rubber mats out. And at this point, I can grab this hose and just come up and start hosing it down. Everybody's got a different version of what a perfect Jeep is. To me, this is it.